you go. All right, I'm going to introduce myself again. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kim Poe. My pronouns are she, her. I am the children and young adult consultant with the Connecticut State Library, and I'm so happy that so many of you were able to join us as we learn about reimagining school readiness and its toolkit that is freely available to all of you. I've shared the links in the chat, but I'll share them again at some point. Feel free to put any questions that you have throughout the day in the chat. I love an active chat. It lets me know that I'm not boring people because that's my worst fear, being boring. So feel free to chat with each other or whatever pops into mind as we go through the day. So the first thing that we're going to do, which is why I wanted everyone, and again, for anyone who missed this, you are able to talk directly to me as the host / panelist, or everyone who is with us today. In the chat bar, you should see where it says to, and then there should be a blue bar where you'll either see hosts and panelists, or if you click on that, it'll say everyone. I want you to all click on everyone for those of you who are going to be participating in the chat, because we're going to do a chat storm. A chat storm is where I present a question to you all who are here. You type the answer to that question in the chat, but don't press send until I say so. It's a little fun because then you see all of the answers at one time. So again, on the next screen, there will be a question. Type the answer in the chat. Do the best you can not to automatically hit enter. Sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. Our fingers have a mind of their own. And wait until I say go to press enter, and then we'll see everyone's response at the same time. I find it very entertaining. So the question for the chat storm is, what does school readiness mean to you? So type that answer in the chat, but try not to press enter automatically. I'm going to give y'all a few minutes to think about it. What does school readiness mean to you, the human? I'll be drinking a lot of water throughout this because it's going to be a lot of talking. Okay, just take a few more minutes to finish up. What does school readiness mean to you? And we're going to press enter in 3, 2, 1, go. I find this so fun. Okay, so we've got some great things here. Helping kiddos be able to work with each other, be ready emotionally to learn, having skills and mental capabilities to perform successfully in classroom learning environments. Preparing kids for school, engaging children in a fun way to get them excited about school, having the tools needed to be ready to learn, to be social, emotional, and cognitively ready. I love the cognitively. So these are all great. These are all perfect. We can all go home. These are all perfect answers. So this is great. I love that we saw some social and emotional things listed here. And excitement and fun, and just kind of like building some of those like fun bubbles to get kids ready for school. So in addition to that, there is a mindset that comes with being ready for school, that comes with school readiness. And actually, it is a growth mindset that's a key part of preparing kids for their school environment. So if y'all in the chat could, on a scale of 1 to 5, so just type it in the chat, how many of you have heard of the term growth mindset and understand it comfortably? Just anywhere from 1 to 5, growth mindset. I know I say it sometimes. Okay. Okay, so kind of all over. Okay, fantastic. Great. So that means we've got a really good, solid group here. So we'll have some good learning and some good conversation. So throughout this session, I'm going to be referencing some research papers and some studies. And by some, I mean a lot. And I just want to reiterate to you that everything, every study, every paper that we talk about is available on the in the Reimagining School Readiness Toolkit, which is freely available on the website. I mean, they have just done the good work here, the Bay Area Discovery Museum. So research has shown that mindset influences both adults and children. This is not something that stops when you can vote, right? So some of the information that we're going to talk about today might be contradictory to what we've learned before, be that consciously or subconsciously, something that we were told or something that we kind of gleaned through life. And helping children maintain a growth mindset is going to be a key part of working to prepare them for success in schools. And we can be and need to be more open to the ideas of helping children develop and keep and hold on to this growth mindset, which might mean that we have a little bit of mental work to do ourselves, which is perfectly okay. So the concept of mindset comes from a person named Carol Dweck and her groundbreaking book, Mindset, the New Psychology of Success, How We Can Learn to Fulfill Our Potential. It was published in 2006, and in some circles is arguably one of the most important contributions to educational research. It changed the way that people think and talk about education and the way that they worked with young children. And her work applies to all aspects of life. So not just school readiness, but like parenting, business, relationships with ourselves, relationships with others, platonic, romantic, all of that. So there are two basic beliefs of intelligence is what we're learning here. Intelligence meaning abilities and other qualities of a person. So there's the idea of a fixed mindset, and it's a belief that suggests that a person's intelligence is static and unchanging, and people have a predetermined amount of intelligence and skill or talent. Kind of like a you get what you get and you don't get upset kind of mentality, but not crayon colors. And there's also the idea of a growth mindset. And it's a belief system that suggests that a person's intelligence can be grown or developed with persistence and effort and learning and focus and things like that. So it often asks questions about like, what can I do to help me grow or learn, right? That's the idea of a growth mindset. And the fact of the matter is that we all have growth and fixed mindsets in different areas of our day-to-day lives that we might not even really be conscious of. So intelligence, right? Let's start there. So a fixed mindset is like the focus on like looking smart at all costs, doing whatever you need to do to look smart and protect your smartness, your looking smartness. Whereas a growth mindset is focusing on learning at all costs. It's okay to admit mistakes. It's okay to not know answers, and to identify ways and spaces in which you can grow. There's also the idea of, and I've got two screens, so don't mind if I look off, but the idea of an effort, right? So if you have to work hard, you're not smart, right? Because the fixed mindset says that this is just something that you have. You don't have to work for it. It's just there. And a growth mindset is working harder makes you smart. So putting in the effort to learn something or cultivate a skill. And this concept is laid out pretty interestingly in this Calvin and Hobbes little cartoon skit thing. And it's where we've got a person on the screen. I was not a Calvin and Hobbes person. I think I'm a little too millennial. I don't know. Am I too millennial for that? But so you've got this person on the screen who's like, what happened to you? And Calvin says, Hobbes and I had a frank exchange of ideas. And Calvin, says to this person, are you doing homework? And the person says, I wasn't sure I understood this chapter, so I reviewed my notes from the last chapter, and now I'm rereading. And Calvin says, you do all that work? And our person on the screen says, well, now I understand it. And Calvin's response is, I used to think you were smart. And I think this exchange happens externally and internally, even if not necessarily in so many words all the time. So the results of these mindsets are going to equal behaviors that can lead to how we deal with setbacks. So a fixed mindset is often going to come with excuses, like if someone has like a bad tennis game and they blame the weight of the racket and their shoes are bad and someone cheated, right? Like there's 1.5 million reasons for why something didn't go the way that you wanted it to. As opposed to a growth mindset is where someone is more likely to show resilience and move forward for that. So an example might be, you get a bad grade on a math test and instead of, I'm not a math person, like math is just not my thing. I'm a music person, I'm a language person. The person sort of accepts what happens and studies harder to course correct whatever it was that went wrong, right? So these are sort of the examples of fixed mindset and growth mindset and the results of setbacks and sort of what can happen from there. So a fixed mindset is going to result in less time spent with a subject. That's where you might find, in certain situations, maybe cheating or other things to sort of preserve, again, that like look smartness after a setback has happened. And you can have a growth mindset even if you're not interested in the thing. So like a growth mindset can be based on motivation. So I might have a growth mindset about my art abilities. I might know that I am not a good artist right now, but I can become one through practice and perseverance. But I'm just not interested in that, and I'd rather put my energy somewhere else. That's still a growth mindset. That's still okay. There's a difference between not being interested in growing your skills in something and just assuming that it's impossible. So there's a bit of nuance to these, but they're all there and they're all really important. Yes, I'm keeping an eye on the chat too. This is with everything, anything and everything, right? Art, golf, whatever. Making friends for some of us who are introverted. I can't make friends, or I really like the comforts of my own home, and that's just where I'm happiness there. This isn't just something that happens in school, but it is something that starts very early in our lives. This growth mindset, fixed mindset, push and pull. So we're going to start talking about some of these studies. We've got a study where Blackwell and her colleagues followed hundreds of students making the transition to 7th grade. And they looked at their math achievement and their mindset. So the blue line on this screen shows the group with a growth mindset, and the orange line shows a group with a fixed mindset. So both start at around the same level of achievement, 71 to 73. I know that gap looks long, but if you look at the numbers, it's just a few points difference. They started about the same level. And over 2 years, the fixed mindset group stays about the same, but the growth mindset group improves over time. So it's not something that's going to happen instantaneously. They improve over time. They were motivated to learn and to give the effort needed, and they outperformed those with a fixed mindset in math. That is this particular study. And that gap widens over a 2-year period. And this is without any intervention. So no one's doing anything. The people conducting the study are just watching to see what happens. So the kids here with these two mindsets that had just entered 7th grade have similar past achievements, but we can see that over time, their growth pulled apart. So Let's look at another graph. So the good news is that you can learn to have growth mindset. It is never too late. So in this study, Dweck and her colleagues designed an 8-week intervention course for students whose math grades were declining the first semester of junior high. So half of the students received instruction in study skills, note-taking, and things like that, while the other half attended a combination of study skills and classes in which they learned about growth mindset and how growth mindset can actually apply to their schoolwork. So the students learned that their brain is like a muscle, and it's a muscle that gets stronger as they use it. And that the learning prompts neurons in the brains to grow new connections. So and if anyone has been to some presentations I've given, you might have heard the term is synaptic pruning, right? So that's sort of getting, and that happens during the teen years around the time we're talking about, and that sort of losing skill. This is talking about the brain being a muscle and able to gain new skills over time. So the results here are that the control group, which is green, continues to decline. So remember, the control group got knowledge on study skills. This is how you study. This is how you take notes. Such and such and such. And their grades continue to decline. While those who had that growth mindset intervention, which you can see there on the graph, showed a rebound in their scores. This is really important. This chart shows that mindset can be changed and shows how important and influential of a factor it is to school things, knowledge, school and all things, as we've talked about. So why are we talking about mindset? Mindset actually begins really early. I think many of us who've worked with young kids, we've heard things about, what children recognize and how young they recognize it. Mindset begins as early as kindergarten. Kindergartners can have a growth mindset, and that fixed mindset starts to emerge in their early elementary years. As you see here, as early as the first grade, you begin to see some of that growth, that fixed mindset, and by third grade, you see even more of it. So we all have growth and fixed mindsets in different areas, and this includes us as librarians. And our day-to-day job. It's true having a fixed or growth mindset in the programs we run, the trainings we attend, what we try to put into place within our own libraries and our own departments. And if we abandon said initiative, if the results aren't what we think they should be immediately, this concept affects us constantly, even if it's subconsciously, and then affects our patrons, even if we don't realize that it's happening in the moment. So research has shown that intelligence is malleable, that growth mindset is confirmed through science and neuroscience and cognitive psychology fields. And when neuroscientists tracked students through their teenage years, they found that a higher density of neurons in teens that had higher IQs, which is kind of wild. So in younger children, play really promotes neuroplasticity, which is the strengthening and flexibility of the brain. And you can change your brain by growing more connections among those neurons, which is sort of what this image here is showing. You can grow those connections by doing and trying something new and then repeating it. Some of us might know this, and that's maybe why we do the same series of like songs and scarves and things in story times, because we understand the importance of repetition, but it might even go deeper than what we think, because the brain is really growing and strengthening while you're doing all of that trying and repeating. So another example in another study, there are oh so many of them, a neuroscientist tracked students during their teenage years. For many students, they found substantial changes in performance on their verbal and nonverbal IQ tests. And they were able to use neuroimaging, so just sort of pictures of the brains, and they found a correspondence in the density of their neurons in relevant areas of the brain for these students, right? So in sort of a type of layman's terms, there was an increase in neuroconnections in the brain, and that was accompanied by an increase in IQ test performance, while a decrease in neuroconnections in the brain was accompanied by a decrease in IQ test performance. Wild and a lot. Let's make it even simpler. So a great comparison is forest pathways. So neuroconnections grow similarly to all of this. So if you're doing something for the first time, so think about driving or trying to learn a new language, or tying your shoes, right, for our littles, it's going to be, it might be hard, right? Some people take to things like a duck to water, but it might be difficult because there's not much of a path. But if you do some bushwhacking, pull out a compass and persevere, the pathway is going to become more used. And with practice, the pathway is going to become clearer, and it's going to get easier with time until it's a well-established trail and pathway. So if you're learning how to drive for the first time, and I remember learning how to drive for the first time in a Suburban, very big, I was very scared. You're doing a lot of thinking about everything that you're about to do, right? So like, am I checking the right mirrors? Did I signal at the right time? Am I looking at the right things? What speed am I going? Am I accelerating? Am I decelerating? Am I going at a consistent speed? Am I following the signs? Your brain is just going hard. And it takes a lot of effort. But over time, it becomes more automatic and it doesn't take as much thought. It's like those times where you leave work and you blink and you're at home and you're like, did I drive here? You did. It's just automatic, and you didn't have to think about it the same way you did your first time behind the wheel. So what are our takeaways? What does this mean? Talk with kids about neuroplasticity and growth mindset. Again, the ability of the brain to change, to adapt, and to rewire itself through our entire lives. So these are two age-appropriate books that do exactly that. When Sophie Thinks She Can't, and Your Fantastic Elastic Brain, Stretch It and Shape It. I'm wondering in the chat, are there any other books that you all know of or have used similar to these two, where we, like praise process over product, which we'll get to next. But are there any books that you've used or shared in story times or anything like that, where you're finding a way to have an age-appropriate conversation with a child about learning and trying harder, and it's not that you can't do it, it's that you can't do it yet? And if there are, please put those in the chat. And what I actually may try to do is collate some of these titles, and I'll see if I can find somewhere on the LibGuide to put them. I'll also make sure to check the Service Center collection to see if we have the titles, and just sort of let folks know that they're there so they can take a look at them if they're interested to see what's in there before adding them to your collection if you're interested. While folks are maybe thinking about that, I don't know. I'm gonna go ahead and move on. Process over product, right? Let's pay attention, if we can, to the way that we praise youths, not just youths, anyone probably. It's an important piece of how to pass on growth mindset, just sort of the way that we praise children and folks that we're interacting with. So instead of focusing on the person, right? Of like, you must be really smart. You just must be a smart little one. Focus on the process and the effort and the work that the children put into what they're doing. So, how to praise, right? How do you praise the learning process over the product? You talk about like the effort and struggle and persistence despite the setbacks, but not just the effort, right? The strategies that they chose to use and the choices that they made. And the fact that they chose a difficult task instead of maybe something a little bit easier, and how all of that leads to learning and improving. These are conversations that we have with kids all the time that we probably don't even think about during craft times or Lego club or whatever. So, for an example, saying something like, you worked really hard and paid attention when you were out on that field playing soccer. Like I saw you doing your best. And when you put forth effort, it really shows in your grades. Like you studied really hard. And you put in a lot of effort. You should be so proud of yourself. Or I can see that you've been practicing your drawing or you've been practicing playing the clarinet, and what a great improvement, right? So how do we know this is important? Another study. So there's a study done again by Carol Dweck and Claudia Mueller, who had kids do puzzles, right? So, and the study shows the impact of praise on a children's interest in tackling challenging problems. So with one group, they said, wow, that is really good. Like you got a really good score. You must be so smart, right? And with another group, they said, wow, this is a really good score. You must have tried really, really hard. So you must be really smart. You tried really hard. So in this study, they then asked the children to pick which puzzle they wanted to do next, a hard one or an easier one. And those with the fixed mindset praise, the you must be really smart, those kids wanted to do an easier puzzle again. And those with the growth mindset praise, those who were praised for their effort, wanted to try something harder. It's a lot to take in. And in addition to how we praise our small folks, I think it's also fair to normalize failure. So notice when a child attempted to do something a bunch of times. Notice when something that they didn't work the first time, and then they tried something different. And maybe that didn't work the first or second or third or fourth time. Maybe it did, but maybe it didn't. And it's okay if something didn't work. It's not that you quit and you can't do this. It's let's keep trying. You can't do it yet. The power of yet. Also, how do we respond to, or how we respond to setbacks and challenges, both in how we speak to children and our own selves. There's an opportunity to build growth mindset into some of the ways that we celebrate challenges, right? So, for example, can you feel your brain growing? All of these things that you've tried and all of this stuff that you learned, can you feel your brain growing? Or like challenge, bring it on. Or let's talk about what was hard today and what we can learn from it. There are opportunities to have conversation and around challenge and to celebrate challenge. If anyone is so inclined, I would love to know of any phrases with these on the screen as guides that you might say to a young one who has experienced a challenge. or tried something new, anything. Yay. Oh, I love this. If I'm doing a craft, I keep my mess ups to show them what not to do and that mine wasn't perfect anyway. And maybe that you don't always get things perfect on the first try. While you've been working very hard, I'm really impressed. I'm proud of you for trying. And I love that one. Especially as kids are growing, there are many kids who are um, little independents and they want to help with everything and they want to try everything. And I'm proud of you for trying this really nice one. So what are some recommendations about some of the things that we've covered so far? Teach children that the brain is elastic and gains strength. And we've seen just from one slide that there are books that are being written about this, so we can let kids know. Kids love building muscle and learning new things. So let's tell them about this because they won't know unless we do. Praising the process. I'm proud of you for trying. You worked really hard. Normalize successful failures. This is my mess up, and this is what I did to make it something more like what I wanted. Lovely. And celebrate challenge and risk. Like you tried so hard. What can we do next time to make it better? What else should we try? And also recognize areas where we have fixed mindset, wherever, because again, this extends beyond libraries and schools into everything. It's just, we're here talking about libraries today. So, for example, I have a very fixed mindset around cooking. Before I have even cooked something, I am convinced it's not going to taste good. But before I have set into the kitchen, whatever it is that I'm planning to cook, I'm like, this isn't even going to be good. I might as well order from the Chinese place down the street because they're going to make things that are way better than I ever could before I ever walk in there. I don't know why. And it's something to work on and to think about and to grow my brain muscle to sort of get out of that fixed mindset. For a multitude of reasons. We do these things and we don't always know why, and we might not even always clock them. We might not even always realize that we're doing them, but we are. And there are ways to work out of that. So, Reimagining School Readiness, a position paper with key findings. Again, all of these, is it still saved? Sure is. The image of this position paper is just right there in PDF in the Reimagining School Readiness Toolkit. And I really, really, really suggest that anyone who is interested in learning more about reimagining school readiness and implementing some of the principles in their library work or schoolwork, I think we had some school people sign up for this, which I absolutely love. Please try to find some time to read some of this, even if it's in little chunks. These studies are very, very insightful. So there's that link. But this position paper was released in 2016 because there, and I'm sure we've seen some of this with some of our grown-ups, there was a growing sense of urgency to prepare children for school, like a really intense one. And I think we're probably seeing some of that now also as a result of COVID with some of the littles who are making their way into preschool and kindergarten. And what can happen sometimes with this like really growing sense of urgency or some misdirected efforts. Pressures to close, I'm gonna put quotations here, pressures to close the achievement gap that I will call an opportunity gap forever until I hear a better term. has led to a lot of educators and grownups to increase like didactic academic instruction, right? Drilling of the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s and names and phone numbers and all of that. And removing some of that child-directed exploration and hands-on learning and imaginative play. Getting away from that and just like, what comes after W? And what happens when we do that is we're missing the mark on preparing our children for learning and achievement by equating school readiness to finite checklists, right? Like kid can tie their shoes, check. Kid can count to 100, check. And I was really glad to see in the beginning when we did the chat storm that a lot of you were able to hone in on the need for other things. This is a yes and, right? It's not a no but, it's a yes and. Would it help if a kid knows all of their letters by kindergarten? Absolutely. There's just more to it than that. There's an and that goes along with that. So what we should be doing is we should be thinking about school readiness as a robust and full developmental process that spans the early childhood years. And this is another reason why I love this whole initiative, up to about age 8. A lot of time when we talk about school readiness, we think about up to age 5, which is when the typical child starts kindergarten. But we shouldn't be stopping there. There's more to learn and there's more to do in those early years of childhood education. So according to a lot of the work that went into developing the Reimagining School Readiness Toolkit, by age 8, children should have developed complex thinking skills. And that's evidenced by their grasp of things like conceptual math. They should be able to effectively self-regulate and should be able to make and carry out plans, simple plans because they're children, but plans nonetheless. They should know how to get along with peers and adults, sharing, nice touches, catch a bubble, all that. And the children should be capable of developing these skills. They should be capable of developing these skills if the adults provided developmentally appropriate and rich experiences to boost learning and cognitive development. And that's where that includes us, right? That's not just parents or caretakers. That's what we're providing to kids in our story times and things like that as well. So according to the Bay Area Discovery Museum, there are 6 key findings that are stated in this paper and are research backed. So when we think about things like every child ready to read, right? Sing, talk, read, write, play. This is the direction that the Bay Area Discovery Museum has gone in. And this is not supposed to be a replacement for that. Like the fact that I still remember all 5, right? This is just something different. This is a yes and, not a no but. Come on, screen. We can do this. There you go. So our 6 key findings have been categorized into 3 areas. They've been chunked together: talk and play, science and math, body and brain. Love it. And the cute little icons. For anyone who might be poking around in the toolkit or plans to look at it later, or anyone who's watching this recording, you can pause. And this chart is on page 5 of the Promising Practices booklet, which is also linked in the toolkit. But let's sort of go into some of this, right? Quality adult-child interaction shapes a child's thinking skills, right? This is the talk and play aspect. So the conversations that we have and the questions that we ask and the experiences that we provide kids matter. Communication with caring adults has a really big impact not only on language development, but also on cognitive processing. So there are studies that demonstrate that, gosh, and I hate to say this, but I mean, if the study's there, the study's there, demonstrates that like affluent college educated families talk more to their young children than families living in poverty. And anyone who's been to like a single GELS workshop knows that this is such a deep, multi-layered process that just today, we already got a lot to shove into today. But there we have it, right? There are a multitude of reasons, but there we have it. So, and what these studies have done is they prompted campaigns to address the word gap by teaching families the importance of talking to children from the earliest age. And that's something that many of us probably do in our story times when we're giving them and maybe having casual conversation with parents and guardians while we're doing modeling at the same time, sort of explaining the importance of talking to children from as young as like utero, like from little tiny to an older child. So something that is interesting is that research on the word gap has basically sort of derived two interesting findings. So the first is that when young children experience more language exchanges with adults, their brain processes language more efficiently. And two is the importance of the quality of the child-directed speech that a child hears as opposed to the sheer quantity. I think as humans, there's something very satisfying in numbering something. And there's value in numbering that thing. I can't remember. Someone tell me, what's the number? Like by the time a child starts school, they should know 50,000 words or something. Is that, did I make up 50,000? I don't know. But there is a number, right? That we say, and there is value in the direction of having of a statement like that kind of floating around. But the research has begun to show that the quality of those words are really, really important. Oh, and there's like in the position paper, there's a whole write-up of all this. So a lot of times when I say studies show, the studies are here for you. They're not like ambiguous studies that you can never find. So let's talk about quality conversation, interaction, and play, right? So here we have a chart with different types of play. Free play is child-initiated and child-directed. Guided play is adult-initiated and child-directed. Co-opted play is child-initiated, like the child wants to do the craft, and adult-directed. So the adult is telling them, no, the eye goes here. You can't put it down there. We're making a snowy owl. You can't put the googly eye on the top of the head, right? And direct instruction is adult-initiated and adult-directed. And that's where you are trying to get a child to copy and do exactly what it is that you are doing. You've initiated this thing and you are directing this thing and you want the child to follow the thing. The sweet spot here in these four types of play is guided play, adult initiated and child directed. That is the sweet spot. Another study example. 4 and 5-year-olds learned about typical and atypical shapes, either through guided play, direct instruction, or free play, right? So although children in both guided play and directed play learned the properties of shapes, only those in the guided play groups were more accepting of atypical shapes. So it was only with guided play that when a child got a trapezoid, they were able to kind of do some deductive reasoning and figure out what to do with it and what it meant in the position paper. This is a poster from the toolkit, and we'll sort of get to the posters a little bit later, that have some samples of questions that you can ask during guided play. Some of you might be familiar with this type of question asking, but like I noticed you colored the sky green, or I wonder how we could make the car move slower. What do you think could help us do that? Or tell me more about your design. Open-ended conversation starters with kids to encourage and amplify that guided play. So next, we're going to see a video. I remember when it came out, I loved it to pieces. I still love it. It makes me smile. So you're all going to watch me smile at myself. While you're watching this video that I'm about to show, please in the chat, just type what you notice about the interaction between the two. What's happening? What are they doing? Just sort of what do you see and what do you notice?
Okay. They need to work on that, right? Yes, okay. Did you understand it though? No. Okay. All right. Huh? Oh, no, not this one. This is the grand finale of this. Yeah, that's the last one. That's what I was wondering. I don't know what they're gonna do next season because they did some stuff this time. Exactly what I was thinking. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. Don't bring that again. You know what I'm saying? Don't do the same stuff. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I was thinking that. Yeah. Yeah. Like go somewhere else with that, but don't bring it here. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's what I said. And then it was like, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, what in the world? But don't do it here. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. 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 Really? I thought the same thing. We think a lot alike, huh? Oh, that's crazy. Right.
I see some great things coming in, mirroring of facial expressions, encouraging the process of conversation. Dad responds to each thing that the child says. The adult respects the child. The child is enthusiastic, excited to keep sharing, keeps making eye contact and using body language, building conversation skills. Absolutely. The conversation goes back and forth. Clearly understand the concept of conversation. Absolutely. Let's see what else. The adult is responding like they are having a conversation with another adult and not a baby. Yes, not the the goo goo gaga, not sort of like the gibberish. Yeah, adult of forming words and options of little one that is, yeah. So the baby, we don't know what that baby is saying. We haven't a clue. The dad hasn't a clue, but it doesn't matter. It's not stopping him from having a conversation with his child the same way that he would have a conversation with like his cousin on the couch. I think they were watching basketball or something like that. Give and take conversation. Dad is giving the child time to respond to his words. I love that. And then he responds to the child's words. And yes, the smiling, the vibe of positivity is definitely there. I know they're adorable. Every time I watch this, this came out years ago and I find it absolutely lovely every time. And there's beautiful bonding that's happening between these two, that even if the child doesn't remember, is still going to be there in the future. So perfect. Thank you all. All right. Pro-social behaviors. Children with stronger social skills do better in school, in the workplace, and in life. Who knew? So increasingly, research, you can read it in the position paper, page 13. Research indicates that children with strong social skills in their early childhood years are more likely to have positive life outcomes overall. So a recent 20-year retrospective study, so we're talking long-term, not short-term, provides evidence that early socio-emotional skills are a critical component of future wellness and success. So a study examined whether teacher-rated pro-social skills in kindergarten, 4 or 5 years old, predict adolescent and early adult outcomes across a wide range of domains, which included education, employment, criminal activity, substance abuse, and mental health. And some of these things, we know there is more that goes into it than being social. Just hold with me. So overall, this study found statistically significant associations between early childhood social competence and the outcomes measured up to 2 decades later, so over the 20 years across all 5 domains. I wonder if children being isolated from COVID will have an effect. I think it might. And we don't know because those of us in the room aren't scientists. And it's too early to tell. Obviously, if we're looking at this study that spanned over 20 years, and then I think on top of that, will there be a difference in isolation between children perhaps with siblings or other children in the home, and children who were in the home by themselves, children who had parents who were able, or caregivers who were able to stay home with them, or children who had to stay at home and do schooling on their own. I'm obviously talking about older kids, 12, 13, and had to do schooling on their own while their adult was out of the house. I think there's going to be I think we're going to learn a lot as a result of quarantine. And then I think there are going to be layers to that result depending on the type of household. And what happens to these guys as a result of such a long quarantine time. We're all going to do a lot of learning over the next 10 to 15 years. I truly believe that. So there's a recent study that strongly suggests, and this is sort of what we're talking about, whether or not kids are doing things with each other or sort of by themselves. So there's a recent study that strongly suggests that altruistic behavior is strongly influenced by social interactions rather than innate tendencies. So let's talk about what that weird sentence means. So this study that you can see visual representations of, and I'll explain, this study shows that simple reciprocal activities can elicit altruistic behavior in young children, right? So in the study, toddlers either played reciprocally with a grown-up that we're going to call E, or engaged in parallel play. So when we say reciprocal, rolling a ball back and forth amongst each other, right? So the toddler rolls the ball to E rolls the ball back to the toddler rolls the ball back to E. Or parallel play. That is where toddler and E are in the room together, but they're each playing with a ball by themselves. They are not rolling the ball reciprocally. They are doing parallel play where they are playing in the same room, but by themselves, like with themselves. So after this playtime, E, our adult, accidentally drops an object on the floor and clearly elicited like need or a desire to be helped with this object that they have dropped on the floor. So it was predicted, and as predicted, the hypothesis to this study, toddlers who had engaged in that reciprocal play were 3 times more likely to help pick up the object than those in parallel play. And this is why it will be interesting. Feels like not the best word, but it's all I got. It will be interesting to see during the time of quarantine, is there a difference between kids who maybe had another kid to play with, or had an adult who had the privilege to be active with their child, to actively play with their child, and kids who had to play, on their own, either because there wasn't another child in the house, or the adults in their house were not in a position to, for a multitude of reasons, be able to, actively play with the kid all the time, the kind of thing that you would see in daycare and recess and all of that. This study is in the position paper, page 14, if anyone's interested. So let's move science and math, right? Science learning is critical for the development of higher order thinking, but missing from most early school experiences. And remember, we're talking ages 0 to 8 here. So not so much about like 5th graders. What grade are 8-year-olds in? I don't know. So when we think about science education, STEM, STEAM, all that. We tend to think about like learning particular information or content, like learning about like metamorphosis or like dinosaur extinction or something. But the best science education asks children to do science, which I think we as librarians are really good at. To closely observe the world around them and create hypotheses, and to design and conduct experiments and to build and make tools. So a very hands-on approach as opposed to a not. So the synergistic relationship between explanation and exploration is a current focus on research investigating early science reasoning and problem solving. So explanation serves as a tool for like generating and evaluating the hypothesis. Exploration provides a mechanism for testing them. So you evaluate and get the hypothesis, but then you gotta like, will the volcano explode when I pour vinegar in it? I don't know. So prompting preschoolers, right? Volcanoes are typically older. Prompting preschoolers to explain what they observe can change the way they reason about like cause and effect. So 3 to 5-year-olds in a study were presented with a set of blocks and a special toy that played music when some of the blocks were placed on top of it, the special toy. So after each block was placed on the toy, children were asked to do one of two things: either explain, like, why did or didn't my block make the toy play music, or verbally report, what happened to my toy when I put this block on it? Did it play music? So when preschoolers were asked to explain, they were more likely to focus on like the causal properties of the blocks instead of the appearance of the blocks. So it was higher order thinking. So research also shows that when children encounter evidence that violates their pre-existing beliefs or theories, like when they observe something unexpected, they spend more time trying to figure it out. Like when something happens that a kid was not prepared for, they're more likely to hold the music, what happened, like reverse and repeat. So the children explore more, and there's something to be learned. So children ages 6 to 7 years old were first categorized based on their beliefs about which blocks would balance on a scale, right? This is another study in the position paper. Which blocks would balance on the scale? And would the blocks balance on their geometric center, which it won't, like if it's like a box, the geometric center won't do it, or the mass center. So if it's a box, the mass center. Then they were shown a scenario that either supported their belief or violated their belief. And then they were allowed to play with the blocks in the scale. So what the researchers found was that children tended to play longer with blocks that violated their initial theory. So if a child thought that a block would balance on the pointy part of the triangle, and they were shown the block balancing on the flat part of the triangle, they were going to spend longer with that block and with that scale. So that's 6 and 7-year-olds. But it goes even younger than that. So there were similar findings with 1-year-olds, like 1-year-olds and younger, who watched an object do something it wasn't supposed to do. A car passing through a solid wall. Babies as young as 1 year old know that a car cannot pass through a solid object. But if you show them a video of that very thing happening, they're going to spend more time with a car and a wall trying to damage your property in a very adorable way. So early math skills, not a problem. And anyone who's got to leave early, this is recorded. we shall be here. Early math skills predict long-term success in school, but not just in math. Early math skills are early predictors of later reading proficiency, which when I heard that was very confused. So there are longitudinal studies where preschoolers' math skills are predictive of long-term success in both math and literacy, but the reverse is not true. And research on spatial skills, which is the ability to mentally manipulate shapes and objects in their environment, spatial skills and math skills emphasize the importance of spatial thinking for school readiness and success in STEM fields, right? So spatial skills aren't often part of math curriculum. And I don't know how often they're something that we as librarians and maybe even preschool teachers embed into activity. But research indicates that spatial skills are malleable, which are going to affect reading in the future. So if y'all could in the chat, which of these activities promote early math skills? So on the screen, we have A, which is color sorting, B, block stacking, C, looming, D, dice, E, shape sorting, and F, measuring cups and measuring spoons. So we've got all of the aboves, all of the aboves, all of them, all of them, all of them, all of them. Connecticut is so great. And you're correct. It's the worst plot twist of all time. It is in fact all of them. And a lot of math activities can be done with all of these items right here on the screen. Plot twist. So remember, we talked about different types of play, right? So research with preschoolers demonstrate the important role that parents, adults, caretakers play in providing spatial education. So researchers observed parents and children playing with blocks for 10 minutes in 3 different situations, the 3 situations that you see on the screen here. First, free play. They just played with the blocks. There was no guidance. There were no rules. There was no nothing. Guided play. The pair, the grown-up and the child, were given numbered photographs and were asked to build the structure on the photograph. And pre-assembled play, the saddest kind, where the pair were given glued together Legos. Like you couldn't do anything with them. The shape was the shape. You get what you get. You don't get upset. So what they found was that parents in guided play situations used more spatial terms than parents in the other 2 conditions. So we're going to put the green pieces down first, and the blue piece is going to go on top of the 2 green pieces. Spatial skills, following directions, all of those things that we said were important for school readiness. Boop. So planning, self-awareness, and self-control are executive functions, and they predict positive school and life outcomes. So when a lot of parents and grown-ups and caretakers think about prepping their kids for school, they really focus a lot on academic skills, identifying letters, being able to write your name first and last, maybe just first, counting to 10 or 100, maybe counting in Spanish, whatever it is. A lot of grown-ups hyper-focus on academic skills when prepping their child for school. And these are important skills. Hands down, they just are. We're not here to say that they're not. In addition to those academic skills, critical skills that children need are also like to be ready to learn, which is a skill. These skills are going to include the ability to plan, simple plans, but to make a plan, to curb unwanted actions. So when you really want to do something, but you can't do it, remembering instructions, and focusing and paying attention, right? So how children learn is just as important as what they learn. And we in libraries are in a really great position to help kids out with that, because again, it's a skill. You're not born with it. It's something that you learn, growth mindset, not fixed mindset, right? So a really great, just sort of like a simple way to put into perspective where you can do all of these things, is a game of Simon Says, right? Simon says, pat your head. Simon says, shake your arms up high. Simon says, touch your nose, wave your hand. The kids are going to want to wave their hand, but they've remembered the directions. Don't do anything unless I first say Simon says. They have curbed the unwanted action. They really, really want to wave their hand, but we did not say Simon says, and that is the rule. And to focus on what it is that the person who is Simon is telling you to do. That one game does all of these things that Simon Says does not get enough respect. It just doesn't. So what exactly are executive functions, though? That's a big word. So executive function is made up of three things: working memory, self-control, and cognitive flexibility. Those are the three main brain processes that support executive function. So working memory is going to allow us to hold and mentally manipulate information in our minds, like computing math facts. Like, I'm pretty sure, like the Pythagorean theorem, we just all know it. It's just in there and it just won't go anywhere. I knew the quadratic formula for a million years, but I couldn't tell you when to use it, but I knew that I could write the formula down because working memory. Young children, and sometimes adults, often act impulsively to satisfy their immediate need. So the need to develop self-control, which is another aspect of executive function, allows us to persist in challenging environments and have successful relationships with others. And then cognitive flexibility, which is closely linked to like creativity, allows us to consider different perspectives and strategies. So children in school settings are often going to be in situations that might be kind of noisy and complex learning environments. They're going to be different, very different from, when the child was at home. And shifting attention to the most important thing in the moment. There might be a kid who's upset and the teacher is dealing with our upset child, but the assignment was to practice your letters, right? So the child's being able to focus on practicing the letters, even though something else is happening in the room, part of executive function. And we would be remiss not to acknowledge stress, higher ordered thinking, retention of information, and creatively flourishing when children experience is really hard for children when they experience stress and when their basic needs aren't met, right? Children and adults, but children in particular, right? So our brains process information differently depending on whether we are we feel like we're in a sense of threat, or whether we feel like we are somewhere where we are safe. So whether we feel threat or safety is really going to affect the way that we act and react to situations. And we can probably all think of a time where something has happened that could potentially have been an effect of whether or not a child feels in that moment like they are in a space of threat or a space of safety, even if they're not, right? Like, it's how that child feels, which might not necessarily be exactly what's going on, right? That's sort of the difference of what's happening there. When another way that we say this is we say things, right? Like, hungry kids can't learn, tired kids can't learn. That's what we're talking about here. And there's a really interesting study on page 16 of that position paper that shows the importance of naps. Naps have been shown to improve memory in preschoolers 24 hours later through a memory game activity. So we all have to remember that normal stress is expected, right? I mean, every child is different. So, something like having to sit down and tie your shoes when you're still learning can be stressful and produce like feelings and actions. So normal stress is expected, but too much stress or toxic stress can alter the brain. Anyone who's learned about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, has learned about this. And relationships with caring adults are a buffer, and also teach about emotional regulation and can help children thrive. And we are some of those adults. If we are adults who are in, the daily lives or weekly lives of a child who comes into our library, our school, our preschool, our daycare, that is us. We are that adult. So, taking some of the information that we've talked about conversation and things like that, we are going to watch. We're gonna skip this video. It's very cute. We're gonna watch this video and the one after it.
Using the mouse count book is just really, really fun.
You are going to be mice, and what am I gonna be?
The snake.
I'm gonna be the...
It's just such a wonderful, inspiring way for the kids to talk about the idea of more and less and joining and separating.
They were very careful to watch out for snakes.
Please type what you notice in the chat as
When they
you
got
watch
sleepy,
this.
They forgot all about snakes, and they took a nap. So here comes the snake. He's very, very hungry because he had no breakfast and no lunch.
This idea of more and less is really valuable to children, and they need to understand it through storytelling.
Is 2 mice enough for me? No, I am very...
I separated an area of space with a circle of tape on the rug to indicate the jar in the story.
Here are 3 mice, little, warm, and tasty. I will put them into my jar.
I made it not a very big space. I made it pretty small space for the children because I wanted them to be able to physically feel what it means when you're adding more to something. That when there are more people in the jar, there's less space for me. I don't have as much room. For their bodies to be able to physically feel that adding of children, it helps them to understand the idea of more.
Okay, what happened to my jar now?
Full.
It's getting more full. Are there more mice in the jar now?
Yes.
Yes, there are more mice.
When the children are going into the jar and when they're coming out, I'm talking a lot about joining and separating because I want the children to understand the idea of operations.
Rock the jar a little more, right? Rock, rock, rock. One more mice escapes from the jar. What happened to my jar? Are there less mice now?
Yeah.
There are fewer mice now. Okay, rock, rock, rock.
When you add more to a set of objects, you have a larger quantity, you have more. And when you take students away or you take objects away from the jar, that's losing objects from the set. And through that, they can understand the idea of more and less.
What happened as the snake put more mice in the jar? What happened
It
to
got
the jar?
full.
It got full, right? And what happened when the mice were escaping?
They lost.
I know. And what happened to the jar?
It was empty. It was because it was zero.
There were 0 mice.
Working with preschoolers, doing this storytelling, changing, adding, and subtracting is their first experience with these higher order mathematical concepts, of addition and subtraction and operation.
So I've been looking at your observations and they are spot on. Great. I saw that someone mentioned vocabulary and the teacher was really great about saying less. And then the kids say, yes, less. And then the teacher responds with fewer. So even though the teacher is not making a big deal about like the vocabulary lesson, merely doing things like that is subconsciously sort of instilling in the kids' minds that less and fewer are the same thing. I also saw and really liked that someone caught in the beginning, there was a child who was, I think, just uber excited, but we weren't ready for that yet. So our teacher gave a nonverbal cue to just sit and wait, and then we'll get to the fun part. I saw that someone mentioned making the children a part of the story. So those of us who work with preschoolers, kindergartens, libraries, we do story times often and all the time. And I think do, and how many of us have done like mouse count, mouse paint, all of that. And the fact that this teacher has found a way to take this book and turn it not only into an interactive physical experience and to instill vocabulary lessons, but also some of that executive functioning. Some of the things like we talked about with Simon Says, you really want to wave your hand, but you have to follow the rules, and the rules are you have to do it when Simon says. This teacher is managing to do all of that with a singular, not very long story, and is instilling a lot of the skills that we're talking about throughout this training on Reimagine School Readiness. Great facial expressions. Love the movements. Absolutely, absolutely. It will probably stay in their memory longer and have longer kinesthetic connections over a worksheet. Great. We see it. We all see it. I love this for us. Okay, so we're going to watch another video and tell me what you notice about this interaction between grown-ups and kids.
So how do you think we can use these containers to make an instrument? Like for the mariachi band, or like maybe for a shaker? What do you think we could do with that to make it into an instrument? You think maybe we need to put something inside? Inside like these shakers?
Yeah.
Well, what do you think we could put inside?
Smells so good.
You think you want to try the fish pebbles?
No.
Ah. It looks different.
You check it. No.
Oh, that tape did work better, Frida. Look, none of the sand is falling out anymore.
It is, yeah.
Can you tell Jennifer your idea? Yeah? You gonna try it too? You want to try this tape some more? Maybe you want to come sit next to Jimenez so you can reach the tape. Is this the one you want to use on Wednesday? Okay, so this one we'll put back. And this one you like. Is it finished or do you need to change something? Well, what I try to focus on the most is critical thinking skills. The idea that they have to think, that we're not going to give them an answer to a thing, and the idea that even once they think up what they think might be an answer, that there might be multiple answers that could all be equally valid. And sometimes your idea might not work the way you thought it would, and so you have to rethink it. And in addition to that is the collaboration. So whenever possible, to try to get children to talk to each other, or just to notice each other and to try to build on each other's ideas. So. You like Michelle's idea to use the tubes, the paper tubes? And the rubber bands, you're going to tie them around there? Are you trying to find two shapes that are the same? Two sizes, the same length? Oh man, you're having a hard time finding one that's the same as that. You found 3 buttons that are the same. They're like little crystals. So you're going to combine 3 paper towels to make a long tube like this. How are you going to stick them together? How are you going to attach them? You're going to use tape. Are you going to be able to play this in our parade on Wednesday when your family comes?
Yeah.
How are we going to play this?
I'm going to put to that.
How is it going to make sounds?
Okay. I see lots of different vocabulary, parroting. I saw some scaffolding, and I'm not sure if anyone put it together, but what this is, this whole activity this is a type of guided play. So the overall goal is that they will be they will be putting together a mariachi band, and the kids have to make instruments, and then he turns it over. So he has guided. There is an end goal, but he's turning it over to the kids to build what instruments they want, however they want. And then we're seeing a lot of some of those things that we have been talking about, and I love. Yes, Nora, he's using the I notice, I wonder, the tell me more about, some of those conversation starters that we mentioned. And we're seeing that kids are coming up with different ideas if something that they tried before wasn't working, right? So the concept of like positive failure. It's okay. We had our young friend, he couldn't find two of the tubes that were the same length. He tried, he went through everything in there and he couldn't figure it out. And our grown-up said, oh, you can't find two that are the same size. You're struggling to find two. And then sort of lets the kid continue to do what it is that he's doing. And next thing you know, our young friend has a new plan. We're putting together three and we're making a trumpet. He guides using keywords, which can be so hard. And I know any of us who've done story time, craft, or activities, we maybe have seen some grown-ups who struggle to just let the kids figure it out or change their minds or build what it is that they want to build. And this grown-up here, this teacher, showed us perfectly with some a lovely visual representation of how to do that, and to let the kids do some learning and developing and growing and failing. Okay, awesome. Also, just so you know, all these slides are already on the LibGuides, but we'll get there later. So as I have mentioned, we're going to be out of here early. I had no idea how long this was going to take, which is why I put 2.5 hours. So as I have mentioned, Reimagining School Readiness has a toolkit. The toolkit is put together by the Bay Area Discovery Museum, the California State Library, and Pacific Library Partnership. So what we have done up to this point is, man, we could have watched the first. That's okay. Wait, I lost it. What we've done up until this point is we've talked about the research that has gone into building the toolkit, developing the 6 principles and grouping them into the 3 categories, and hearing about all of the studies that ultimately influence the creation of the toolkit. What is the toolkit? Where is it? What's in it? And why do we care? So this toolkit was released in 2016. It was co-created with library staff between the Bay Area Discovery Museum and library staff. It was co-created with 6 public libraries in California from 2016 to 2018. The Bay Area Discovery Museum then applied for a grant from the Institute of Museum and Library Services, and over a 3-year time period involved the states in colors that you see there in the training, in the train the trainer process, which resulted in 30 some odd trainers, something like that. There's trainers everywhere. I am one of them. I had a co-trainer at who's a frontline librarian out in Library World. So that was sort of the process with which they rolled out the Train the Trainer program behind the Reimagining School Readiness Toolkit that we're going to power through here. We're doing great on time. So the toolkit provides research-based strategies to support school readiness programs and enhance libraries working with children ages 0 to 8 and their families. And it provides a variety of resources so libraries can pick and choose the ones that are right for their community. We will touch base on that. But basically what the toolkit is it is not a curriculum. It's not a curriculum. It is a set of free resources that each individual person can take and find a way to use and input into what they are already doing in their library or school. some of the amazing highlights of this toolkit. One of my very favorites is it's available in 6 different languages. These 6 languages were chosen because they were the most prevalent languages spoken in the trial areas in California, which is where the languages came from, right? Just in case anyone was interested. I believe that the Bay Area Discovery Museum might be trying to expand to include new languages, but the grant period has kind of lapsed, so I'm not entirely sure what they're going to do from here, but 6 languages is a fantastic start for anybody. And most of the resources are organized by age group, so babies, toddlers, preschoolers, and early elementary. So if someone wants to embed some of the Reimagining School Readiness principles into their preschool story time, their 3 to 5-year-old story time, then you can go and you can look at that information as you sort of build out your program and advertise and things like that. I mentioned a while back, but I really, really suggest reading through the resources that have been provided in the toolkit. Let me just grab that link one more time. There's the link to the Bay Area Discovery Museum Reimagining School Readiness Toolkit. The position paper and the promising practices, which is a guide for library staff, they are not long. I almost said they're not short. I'm sorry. They're not long. They are worth the read. And if anyone is interested in expanding their programs to include some of these principles or shimmying some things around to include some of these principles, these are great resources, and it really shouldn't take too much of your time. The papers are organized by these skill sets again: talk, play, science, math, body, and brain, and goes through the different key findings from all of the research that the Bay Area Discovery Museum did. But I think one of my favorite parts of the toolkit, and it's just because I'm a nerd and I love that about myself, I love a good case study. One of the things that I hear in almost every workshop I have ever given about something like this is that folks really wish that they could see what an initiative or a project looked like in a library. Sometimes the initiative is new and there is no one who's done it yet because it's new, but that is not the truth with Reimagining School Readiness. There are 4 case studies that are available and accessible within their toolkit. Again, not long, that you can read about. And what I like about the case studies is that I think the Bay Area Discovery Museum did a really good job of putting together case studies on a variety of library types. So Fowler, which is the second case study image that you see, is a small branch that had no programming for young children. And Reimagining School Readiness helped them develop programs and story times. Connecticut is a small state. There are so many libraries that only have 1 full-time staff member. Some of this stuff is hard. And I think any of us who are from larger libraries, it's kind of easy not to think about our teeny tiny libraries. There are 190 of them. Some of them are going to be small. And the benefit that a program like this can be to folks in situations different from others. And then you have on the opposite end, the Ovid Family Community Library, which is the last image there on the screen, which is a larger branch with tons of resources. And they only tweaked their programs based on the toolkit. So within these 4 case studies, we see a library that built an entire program series with the toolkit that did not exist the library previously. And we see a library that had robust resources and support, but they were still able to learn something by tweaking the programs that already existed with the Reimagining School Readiness mindset stuff. Water break. There are also within the toolkit, there are posters for printing. So I showed you one previously, the one in the middle with some of the conversation starters on discovery. I notice, I wonder, tell me more. But there are more with regards to playing, like what is the difference and what is the same? Can you find a way to get the car to go under the bridge? How can we work together to paint a rainbow, right? Conversation starters that sit within that growth mindset as opposed to accidentally sliding into that fixed mindset. And also reading conversations, because again, we're talking about kids up to 8 years old who are doing independent reading in theory. What did you think about when Timmy's big brother was mean to him and wouldn't let him play baseball? How do you feel about Susie losing her cat? What do you think will happen next, right? These posters are available, and again, in 3 different sizes, and again, available in those 6 languages. We talked quite a bit about involving math in some of the younger itty bitty little ones, and giving them the same attention that we would give some of our older kids. There are time to try math cards with directions on how to print them. And they are great to use not only in the library, just to sort of leave there in a corner for parents or caretakers to have access to while they're playing in the library. But if there's a world in which these can be given away to parents and caretakers in story times, that's also great. They say things like, use your time near a computer station to ask children questions like, if our family is going to use the computer for 60 minutes, how can you divide the time equally between family members, right? So that's going to be a question for an early elementary schooler, a 7 or 8-year-old. But then there are also going to be things like, when putting away toys with your 2-year-old, instruct them to put things over, under, to the left, and to the right. And what I also like is that on the cards, it tells you why that particular activity or thing is important, like what the benefit of doing this is. Try using a number as an adjective when talking to children. Let's take 3 books home, or there are 2 chairs at the table. And then it tells you at the bottom, the importance of understanding numbers in such a way. All just there, folks. It's all just there. It's there for you to print and have. You don't have to do anything. The directions to print them are a little wonky, but that's okay. In addition to the time to try cards, there are also really great science and math bookmarks, again, broken down by the ages that we mentioned: baby, toddler, preschool, early elementary, whatever it was, which does the same thing. So, recognize an amount without counting builds math skills. Try using everyday experiences to practice with children. So it's instructing the adult on, here's the thing and here's why it's important, and here's a way that you can do it. Without counting, how many chairs do you think are around this table? How many stalls are in the bathroom? That's going to be some of that spatial awareness. If a child knows that a square has 4 sides, and it is a square table, then without counting, they may know there's 4 chairs, because I know a square has 4 sides and there's a chair on each side. Those kinds of things that can be slid into everyday conversations with our children in the library and beyond. There's also flyers and tips. Again, everything is broken down by the age groups and available in the 6 languages that were previously mentioned. We mentioned in one of the case studies, there was a library that previously had no programming for a certain age group. So what the Bay Area Discovery Museum has also done within the Reimagining School Readiness Toolkit is handed out social media suggested posts and images. So it'll have at the bottom instructions and frequently asked questions, things you can post on Facebook, and things that you can post on Twitter with the number count, and again, available in the 6 languages and broken down into the age group. So not only is the toolkit giving you the research, the case studies, the flyers, possible handouts. They are also handing you a way to promote what it is that you were doing on your social media. And I don't remember if I have a slide for it, but they're absolutely cute photos. If anyone remembers when we were advertising this last summer or something, we pulled from all of this when making our social media posts about offering Reimagining School Readiness training the first time. That was the like really long training time. So for right, I mean, they just hand it to you. They just hand you the kit. Like, here is everything that we have done. Go forth and enjoy. Bye. Maybe tell us how you like it. Oh my gosh, I love librarians. There are also talking points for library staff. So you all, there's 32 of you now. I think there were 41. Life happens. Some folks have to go away. If you're trying to go back to your library and to explain what this is, Reimagining School Readiness, why it's important, why you want to try it, they have also handed you a sheet of talking points. It's just there. If you need to go back to your principal and you're like, hey, I want to try some of this stuff, there's just a sheet that you can just read it off of. One of the most popular aspects of the toolkit, I am sure, is the activity database. So there is, I'll drop the direct link in there. I imagine everyone's going to click on this link and click through, and I can't say I blame you. This stuff is great. So there is an activity database that is, like the program in a box that we all talk about, where it will give you a program like digital scavenger hunt. Nope, I don't like that one. This one, I did this one. Fairy tale engineering. Help fairy tale characters solve a problem through engineering. It tells you what the program is. It tells you what ages it's for, ages 6 to 9. And then when you go a little farther into it under Learn More, it gives you the scope of the activity, the age, the topic, the difficulty, how long it's going to take, how many participants can participate. It'll tell you the materials required. You're going to need scissors, tape, glue, writing utensils. It'll give you additional options to those material requirements. So maybe some egg cartons, cardboard pieces, toothpicks, clothespins, binder clips, and it gives you the instructions. What exactly is fairy tale engineering? And I can tell you because I know. It's this one, well, I don't know if the directions say this, but when we did it, it was based off the book, The Three Billy Goats Gruff, which was terrifying. Can we talk about that for a second? But in The Three Billy Goats Gruff, the Billy Goats have to get across the bridge before the troll eats them. Why do we read these stories? So in this activity, fairy tale engineering, it is the job of the children to create a bridge so that the three billy goats or ducks, whatever, can safely get across the bridge and protect themselves from the troll. So the kids are going to have balloons and straws and binder clips and plastic cups for a guided play activity that they are all going to solve differently or not solve. And that's okay because failure can be celebrated. And then it'll also give you the links to creativity. What is happening while the children are executing this activity? A deeper understanding of the needs and reality of people you are designing for. Walking through someone else's shoes can lead to more appropriate breakthrough innovations. They are practicing empathy and perspective and social and cognitive skills. And when my co-facilitator did this exact program with some kids on a school visit, the vocabulary that can come out while kids are doing this. There was a child who randomly said, I need stabilizers, and dove for the straws so that he could, make a better bridge for the three billy goats gruff, right? Like it's just all there. There's a whole toolkit just all in there. So there are ways that you can make adjustments to story times. You don't have to create something new. You can modify a program that exists already. How do you do story time right now for slightly older children? Are they interactive? What type of craft activity do you do? Is it guided play? Is it adult directed play? Ask yourself those questions, keeping in mind some of the things that we learned during all of the knowledge gathering that we did for Reimagining School Readiness. Signs for parents, right? So here we have some images of some of those talking bubbles. We have images of the cards that have been set out and some activities. Can you count the acorns? How many pine cones are there? These are just images of actual people at actual libraries who have set up little stations in their space with some of the things that they got from the Reimagining School Readiness Toolkit. Hands-on activities, the mystery box, the Not a Box. I think we all know Not a Box. Providing opportunity for guided play, opportunity for creation, opportunity for co-design, working together, self-regulation, all of that stuff that we talked about that's indicative for school readiness, which goes beyond ABCs, 1, 2, 3s. Can you write your name? What's your phone number? Like I said, the toolkit gives you photos and words for social media posts. These are just some examples of social media posts that others have used. And I have dropped the link in the chat, so you already have that. But like I said, the toolkit has been made available for free. I know from my training that the folks at the Bay Area Discovery Museum would love the occasional email to sort of let them know how the training has helped you, how the toolkit is working. If you're enjoying it, if you're not, there are opportunities to add to the what's that called? To add to the activity database. If you click around some of those activities, you'll see at the bottom who contributed that particular activity to the database. So all of those are options to participate. They also have something that's really interesting where you can sign up to receive 12 monthly emails with tips on how to use your toolkit in the library. So if this was a lot of information and it's like kind of overwhelming at the moment, Bay Area Discovery Museum has even set up a way to kind of to handle that. And that's it. That's it. It's the whole thing. I was not convinced that I'd be able to do this in an hour and a half, which is why I gave myself 2.5 hours. That means many of us are going to have some free time, I hope. So I am going to stop sharing. And I am going to ask if there are any questions. And I'm also going to share the survey in the chat. Please, if you can, take a moment to fill out the survey. It really impacts how I give my presentations, what we present, so that we know what we can do better. As you all, public librarians, teachers, school librarians, you serve your patrons. Librarians and teachers and educators are my patrons. So however I can best serve you, I mean, you can just like tell me to my face or send me an email, but it's a little bit more organized if it goes in the survey. But please let me know, are there any questions, comments, fun facts anyone wants to share? The recording will be made available when it downloads. No one asked this, but like just in case someone was typing it, however long it takes for it to download and then re-upload. Hopefully I'll have it up at the end of the day today. If not, tomorrow for sure. Thank you. I'm so glad so many of you were able to come. This was a like 2-day, 8-hour presentation, which is just not, we're just not able to train as many people that way. So shrinking it seemed to be the easiest way to train, you know, a larger quantity of people. Okay. I'm glad it was informative. Let me just check this Q&A box in case anyone threw anything in there. Nope. All right, folks. I mean, in theory, many of you have kind of an hour to hang out, continue to do Reimagine School Readiness work by going through the toolkit. Going through the toolkit and looking at some of those activity guides. I really suggest reading through the position papers and reading those studies for yourself can be really enlightening. And My email is always open if anyone has any questions or anything they want to share. Anything at all, I'm here. Thank you so much.